start with a reflection. Thank you, Emma. We love to think about not just quantity of life, but quality of life. And this word quality suggests care, patience, attention, being thorough and thoughtful, awareness. As I sit here, I reflect on all the words that come up in my mind when I think of quality. And then I direct those words, those feelings towards myself. A vision of quality on myself. Not quantity, but quality. And when we look at a vision of quality on the self, it's not about what is superficial or temporary, but a very deep, respectful experience of myself. We use the word soul or spiritual. Experiencing myself in a very deep way, looking at the qualities of the self. Using those qualities in how I look at myself. Very peaceful vision on myself, respectful vision on myself, very light, forgiving, kind. A quality vision on the self in order to have a quality experience of myself. To experience myself just in a qualitative way. No quantity, just quality. The character or qualities of the self. And to have great faith in that experience of the self. Because sometimes I slip into quantity and put aside the qualities of the self. Why? Ironically, I'm seeking quality, value. Only quality will attract quality. I come full circle back to thinking about what words come into my mind when I hold this word quality in front. Om Shanti. So, what words do come into your mind? When you hear this word quality, what words come into your mind? Does anyone want to share? Authentic.
Quality of life.
Quality of life, absolutely. Yeah. It's very interesting when we say quality of life. You know, we want to feel comfortable and secure and safe, and more, quality and quantity have gotten a little tangled up together. And the irony again is that when I just focus on quantity for quality of life, it actually moves me in the other direction. My quality of life starts to erode. Because if I'm just focusing on quantity and investing quality of life only on quantity, then it seems to bring a lot of worries and stress. Am I going to lose that quantity? And it's not that it's bad to look at quantity. It's just we don't want to separate it from quality. So again, these words are always inspired coming from physical fitness, and then we look at what they have to do with spirituality. And so starting with the application of this word quality in the physical realm, we have quality control and all these types of things. And I always found it interesting, you know, I'm thinking of, and this happens more in the, what we call the aesthetic sports. So gymnastics, synchronized swimming, skating, these sort of aesthetic sports. It's very different how the winner, if you will, is determined than say in a 100-meter sprint. In a 100-meter sprint, it's just any which way you can. Get across that finish line the fastest. Doesn't matter if it looks pretty, just get across that line. Now, what's discovered, of course, is that if you don't do that with certain quality of effort, you eventually will not be able to do it anymore because you'll become injured. So, sort of in an implied way, quality starts to. But in the aesthetic sports, such as synchronized figure skating, gymnastics, they make it quite overt that quality is part of winning. So, you know, there's artistic and there's technique. And this idea that they're really looking at, yeah, you can do a triple sakao or whatever it's called, or a double backflip with a twist, but was it technically clean? Was it of a certain quality? Right? So they tend to look at both. And I've always really appreciated that. You know, it's not about putting quantity aside, but never at the expense of quality. And quality always comes first. Quantity will follow. Quality always comes first. I remember once it was a fitness class, and I think it was just the warm up. So we hadn't even started. It was a class where you lift heavy weights. It was a strength training class, a group setting. And there was a couple of experiences in this that I found very illuminating. The first one, they're just warming up. And so in the warm up, one of the objectives of the warm up is to rehearse some of the movement patterns you will use during class. So during class, they're going to do with weights, they're going to do squats into an overhead press or whatever. And so in the warm up, they don't have weights, they're just rehearsing the movement mechanics. And so they're told, if you can't do the movement cleanly without weights, then it doesn't make any sense to do them with weights. It's not going to get better. The quality won't, you know. And usually students don't listen to anything you're saying. But I noticed after that, people started putting their weights down during class. They just, you know, it was quality always comes first. And then I remember another class that was the reverse of this. So we decided there were two instructors, myself and another instructor, team teaching. And it was a fusion. So she would do the weight bearing, and right afterwards I would alternate with just body weight. And again, this time they had heavy weights and they were doing squats. And then the idea was they would lose the weights and then we do the body weight. And we noticed something very interesting. They did squats, many squats, a certain quantity of squats with the weights. The moment they were asked to do the weights, take the weights off, and it wasn't about reps, it's as if they just fell apart. They suddenly couldn't squat. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. It should be easier without the weights, but they suddenly couldn't do it. And what we discovered was when they did it with the weights, there was no attention on technique. It was just lift those weights up and down. But when we went to body weight, because you're no longer focusing on the quantity, you're freed to focus on quality, and the quality hadn't been there. So now they couldn't do the exercise. So it's really always we want quality first and then quantity. So we often say, you know, this lovely pair, Lakshmi and Narayan. And, you know, this idea, what does Lakshmi represent? Narayan, we know, is coming into action, fairness and action. Lakshmi represents that inner wealth or wisdom, really the quality, the richness, the wealth. We want that to be in front, not the doing, but the being. We want that. Either there's a technical problem or Nora has a question. I'm not sure. Oh, okay. Nora has an answer to the question. What comes to mind? She has a comment to share. Did she want a mic or? Okay. Yeah, sure. So when she heard quality, what came into her mind was, where do you spend your time? As in quality or quantity, or just in general, where you spend your time? Right. Right. Yeah. So a few years ago, I started to become very interested in this, in response to what you shared too, very interested in what we call calisthenic athletes and the aesthetic sport endeavors. I just share gymnastics. They are all calisthenic athletes, but I started to look at really calisthenic athletes. They have a lot of my admiration. And these are body weight athletes who can just do their core control is remarkable. These are the athletes that can do push-ups with their feet off the ground. I don't know if you've seen that. Or they can do handstand push-ups in just freestanding. These souls have incredible control, you know, pull-ups that look like butter, where they just slide, you know, it's just absolutely remarkable, all body weight. And the reason they drew my attention is I was very aware they had a quality of execution that I knew made it possible to have that quantity of output. And so in physical fitness, if you want to stay healthy, avoid injury, get full benefit from an exercise, you have to look at quality of execution, not just quantity. So it's not just, oh yeah, I can bench press 300 pounds, but it looks absolutely horrible. Not only are you going to kill yourself, but what benefit did you get from that? Other than building up my ego, what benefit did I get from it in terms of the body? What did I just do to my body? So quantity, it's not that it's bad, but when it's all that I focus on, it tends to just be building the superficial. And that's really obvious in fitness. You know, dancers, these aesthetic sports, very often they don't really look very muscular, you know, but they are incredibly strong, deceptively strong. But those who just focus on quantity, they will have your your classic look of someone who's fit. So the six pack and the muscles. And they might very well be strong in some ways, but these are quite superficial signs of strength. There was a story, I don't know, it was such a strange story of a sister, a BK, no less, in India who could pull semi-trailers with her hair. Like they tie. Did you see this? They tie the truck to her hair and she could pull. Did you ever see this? She was actually pulling something when I was in Madhuban one year. I came out of Diamond Hall and there she was pulling a truck. Yeah, it was so odd. But if you walked by her on the street, you would never, ever guess. Like she just looked like no. So there are superficial things that happen to the body that we assume have to do with strength. The six pack is a classic example, but that's the most superficial layer of muscle, the rectus abdominis. It doesn't mean they're transverse or obliques are strong. Often their balance is not there. So I want to, again, it's not wrong to build up, but I want to make sure that the quality is there first. So what does this mean in spirituality? One thing that it means in physical fitness is honesty. And the odds are very high that that same quality will be needed in spirituality. So the term authenticity came up. Very honest approach to what I am doing. Where there is honesty, there probably is not ego. And where there is ego, there is probably not honesty. They're a bit incompatible. So if I'm just going for what ego likes, that superficial, that show, then I might be deceiving myself a bit that I'm progressing, I'm benefiting. But in fact, I'm just feeding that ego, that quantity. But when I look honestly, well, actually, I'm not quite doing that technically correct. I'm not quite following the directions. The quality of execution isn't there. It might mean that I have to go back to basics. It might mean that I have to do less. It might mean that I might look like I'm not doing anything. We have these wonderful conversations and one soul saying, yeah, no, I got to go back to the square one, if you will. And she said, wow, that's really disappointing. It's like, no, it's not. It's honest. And should we all be lucky to not, we had even this morning that very well-known ones aren't actually very good yogis. So the very thing this is all about. Yeah, on the surface, I look great. But internally, I'm not actually following, I'm not executing it correctly. And I have to be honest because someone looking at me might say, oh yeah, no, that's one powerful yogi. They give amazing lectures. So it's kind of me having to look honestly at myself. Am I actually doing the spiritual work? Am I actually moving into spirituality, or is it just a show of spirituality? And this is why I've always enjoyed the way the subjects of spirituality unfold. The one that would be most showy, if I started there, is actually at the end. And the one that's least showy, very, very incognito, is at the beginning. It's a bit like, planting something that it has to come from a seed. I could have an artificial flower, but it's artificial, right? It's not the real thing, but it looks beautiful, but it has no seed, no roots, and it's really not the real thing. So there's no fragrance, nothing. But for the real thing, it actually starts in a very incognito way. It doesn't look like much is going on for quite a while. Someone asked the other day, a horticulturist interview, they had been given a draft of a pear tree and they were asking, how long before I get some fruit? And the interviewer sort of laughed and said, you're looking at least 7 to 10 years. Can you imagine? Just keep caring for it. Quality of care, just keep. Oh yeah, so what of course happens, science tries to manufacture hybrids that will produce fruit sooner. So honesty, patience, attention, and underneath all of these qualities that create quality is the big one, self-respect. A soul with self-respect can afford to be honest with themselves because they're not interested in the show. They're interested in benefit. And so it might not look like anything is going on. It sometimes might even look like it's going in the wrong direction. But there's that self-respect, that deep sense of one's own value, that deep faith and trust in the self. So moving along really honestly, constantly asking the self, what am I doing? Constantly checking, what am I doing? And in a fitness class, there's something at the front of the room, the mirror. And the idea of the mirror is to encourage quality of effort. What do you think might happen if you put souls without self-respect in front of a mirror? How will they use that mirror? They might compare. They might go back to looking on a very superficial level. It's not used for self-correction. It's used for other things. But the idea of it was to encourage us to be honest. It gets to the point, and we call it self-deception, when there isn't that self-respect, so not that it gets to the point where I can't even look in the mirror and see clearly. I can't even, it was meant to be a very objective tool for self-progress. I can't even look clearly in the mirror. I distort what I see. So the first subject in spirituality, we call it the mirror of truth. The first subject is just spiritual knowledge. That's the first subject we work with. It's very incognito. It's all internal. Do I understand? And there's going to constantly, if ego's there, constantly be a pull to kind of fast forward to the last couple of subjects, virtue and service, but I'm always having to go back. And this is, I think, why, and many are quite confused about this, why, till her last breath, Dadi Janki, the spiritual head of the Brahma Kumaris, over 80 plus years of studying, you would still find her with that paper, reading that spiritual knowledge. She just loved. This is a sign of someone who wants quality. She always would say, sign her letters as, godly student, BK Janki. And that always touched me. It always spoke of so much quality, so much self-respect, always wanting to get in that first subject. Do I understand? And not letting ego or intellectual whatever get in there, but just do. I know for myself, I'm going to say, do I understand? Do I really understand? And as you ask the question with that honesty, you actually create space, a pure space for more understanding. It's all very, very internal. This is between you and yourself. Yeah, we can talk a good talk. That doesn't, that's pundit. That doesn't indicate I understand anything. Yeah. So really internally, we're always checking, do I understand what it means to say I am a soul? Do I really understand? It's not just, a point of light, but do I really understand? We're constantly, who am I? Who do I belong to? Who am I? Constantly wanting to go deeper and deeper into that understanding. And that will then help with the next topic, which is experience and that connection, my relationship with truth, honesty. It says God is pleased with an honest heart. God, of course, is truth. There's such, on my side, there needs to be honesty. Truth is always truth. So truth is going nowhere. It just stays there. I'm trying to move closer to the truth. And that will require I be more and more honest. Really, that's, I guess, the essence of what soul consciousness is honesty. You know, I remember whenever I look into the eyes of the soul Brahma Baba, who we know is constantly in remembrance of the Supreme Soul, it always feels like in one eye, I feel truth, this incredible detachment, this beyond, this eternal. And in the other eye, honesty. You know, as if those two souls, one is Brahma Baba, the student, the other one is the teacher, the Supreme Soul. And as if I'm sort of witnessing or peeking in through the windows on a very intimate meeting between the student and the teacher, the soul and the Supreme Soul. So the student brings honesty on their side, and the teacher, of course, is truth. So that second subject, of which depends so much on the first, how honest have I become, will determine how close I can get to the truth. And if that's happening, then I start to really be colored by the truth. I become more and more true, and that's called dharana, or character, virtues. I can't fake that. There's no rectus abdominis for that. You know, I mean, I could try, and we often do. I'll just speak softly, I'll walk softly, I'll wear white clothes, I've got the dictionary, I say all the right things, I say Om Shanti 20,000 times a day. I be very sweet, and I do that. I can certainly do some rectus abdominis maneuvers, but it's not really the quality. It's just show. That subject is not possible at an authentic level if I haven't become honest and develop this connection with the truth. If that's happened, I only have to try. I don't have to try. The virtues automatically emerge. Right? We start to see that dharana, and it's easy to be nice in nice situations, right? But it's actually in the challenging situations that we get to see what actually is happening within the self. So that's a really good mirror. And so if those virtues are starting to emerge, it will automatically inspire other souls, automatically serves other souls. Don't have to do anything, don't have to say anything. You know, it's just, it's there, it's revealed. No show, it's just revealed. And so it's really beautiful, the quality that is naturally there in a spiritual practice of self-transformation, because it starts with that honesty based on self-respect. I want to go at this honestly with that quality. And it's the same thing we see in the physical, you know. I want to execute the exercises honestly. We used to laugh, and I know I've shared before, but in ballet class, it was intensely honest because we had to go in there with leotards, tights, and nothing else. So you could not hide anything from the teacher's eyes, and they could see everything. It was very, very honest atmosphere. Even if you tried to get your leg a little higher, they would see you're doing that with the wrong alignment, and they'd always say, lower your leg and correct your alignment. Less quantity, more quality. And, you know, so in class, always, always quality, quality, quality. But once you got the costume on, a lot was hidden. Right? And so you knew that some dancers might cheat a little to sort of get that for whatever reason. Again, it might be ego, who knows? But they put quality aside for quantity. And inevitably, at some point, something would be injured, something would happen. It just wouldn't work out well. You know, I'm always so touched. I know I've shared before, but this beautiful video by a very, very well known ballerina in the world, where she's so honest in this video. It's about maybe about an hour long, one exercise, I believe. And the quality is off the charts. I can't even describe it, but she's with a ballet master and she's just trying to do a very simple exercise called a tendu, where you extend one leg to the side and point your toe. Just that's it. And she has incredible hyperextension, so there's some issues there, but he wanted such a high quality of execution. Now, this is a prima ballerina with the Alberta Ballet Theatre, ABT, one of the top companies in the world. So I don't think she's, I think she knows what she's doing. But she is so surrendered to his instruction and takes every criticism and is videotaping this for the world to see. And there's times when she starts to move one leg, and he says, "Stop, stop! Don't even bother. It's wrong." She hasn't even really done anything. It's just started. He's like, "No, no, you can feel it, right? You're off, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, I know." And you know that old habit creeps in, and this goes on forever. And she's sweating. You know, I'm just watching this thing, not because I really care about tondus, but just absolutely enamored, just completely hypnotized by the level of quality at that point in her career, to go to something so basic that little children learn, that basic an exercise, and to the world have it picked apart. It's a very strong, what a serviceable video, actually. So much service in that video. And so the humility, the honesty that comes with quality. And what's the benefits for the self? You know, the assumption in spirituality, which I deeply believe, is that, and I've been feeling more and more, is that as spiritual beings, we have so much capacity that is largely untouched. You know, I remember the first time I heard, I'm sure you've heard that stat, that we're only using like what, 9% of our brain or something like this, some small percentage. And I remember, you know, the effect that statistic had. And I think it might be much, much less in terms of spiritual capacity, our character, that we have these amazing characters, nature, virtues, and we're not even scratching the surface. And so, with this understanding, this feeling, this vision that we have incredible capacity, do we want to unlock that capacity? Do we want to go for a fast food, short term, showy quantity, or go for the long haul quality, completely unlock our full potential? And that kind of has to be clear in my mind. Am I going for quick fruit, or might take a little longer, but much longer term fruit? Which return do I want? And that's again depending on the self respect of the soul. If there is very little, then of course I want to get immediate return, some kind of hit. But if there's this full sense of self worth, then I'm happy to do the long haul, to go for that quality. So I'm going to stop here and see if there's anything you want to share or add to the conversation.
Hello, Sister Judy.
Mm.
I was just kind of laughing in my head about when you said, somebody said, like, what's the age when you get the fruit of spirituality? Was it, were they talking about spirituality? Like if you're in Gyan and then the fruit may start kind of showing up in 7 to 10 years? Was it?
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's close to 7 years for me. I think I'm seeing some fruit now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, you can, this idea of planting a seed and the sapling could be there, branches, trees, all, but no actual fruit yet. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I have a thing in my heart for when it's quality. I often think it does take a little bit longer for the real thing to show up. I think there are some initial results which encourages us and keeps us going, but it can take a little time for some mature fruit to show up. And I personally think that's quite normal, actually, and a sign that, okay, so I have been doing something all this time. So congratulations.
Maybe an apple here and there.
Yeah, yeah. You should cherish that apple. Don't eat it. Cherish it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's true. It can take, if it's quality, it often will take a little longer. Anyone else want to share?
Um, when you talked about quality, I was really thinking about the focusing on right method, right? So by at a beginning, so probably when you don't have the fruit at that moment, you might be little, if you. That's also, I think, a right method that you have a lot of patience, on yourself, at not getting, frustrated that I'm not getting that fruit at that moment. So I think over that period of time, there's a lot of learning happens, I guess, that the mainly to have trust in what you're doing at that moment, that, I am in the right path, and then I'm putting on, having that faith that this is going to give me that fruit in the long term. At this moment, how I am working on myself to sustain that period, and more understanding that, because while on the way in this spiritual journey, and you think that you have understood things, and then there are many more subtle things keep coming up, and you try to understand that, and more you start exploring, what's coming up from within, and then I think over a period of time, there's more and more stability, or like not really influence so much, even though there still might be, but then it's easy for you to understand that you have had, you have sown the seed, and then like uh, it is the way, it is a journey right now, and then I just need to keep on focusing on that, what is the only concern that I need to have. So I think, a lot of patience is required for that, um, and having that patience and a lot of trust in that method, that what you are trying. So it's a journey, I guess, and a lot of learning happens on that way.
Mm. Thank you, Jima. Yeah, trust is huge. We're always talking about the story, the emperor's seed, where the soul, followed the directions, took the seed, planted it. And what I liked is talks about the quality of care that she gave to that seed. It was very honest, the quality of care. And then it didn't produce any show whatsoever. There was no show, nothing, no show, but she did give the quality of care very honestly. And then, of course, at the end, she was the one who's chosen despite the show that others had. And it's a message for honesty, but also, that connection of honesty to quality and trust. And as you said, the right method. And, very often I know there's such a pull to have a result. And sometimes we even get disappointed if we don't, respond to something, we react. And so I didn't give the result that I should have, and we get disappointed. I reacted. And I think that's often when we need the most quality, the most trust. That, okay, I learned something there, I reacted, there's clearly something there. I still, in athletics, when that happens, when someone's doing something and they feel pain somewhere, they don't get upset with themselves. They take that pain as a very good indicator. Okay, there's something here that's out of alignment. They don't lose faith in themselves. They just know this is a sign that there's something's here I still need to correct. This is very useful feedback. So often if we're moving along and we react to something, we go, oh my goodness, right? We might get disappointed about, have I done anything? And rather than, no, I still have complete faith in myself. I still trust the method. This is good feedback that there's still something here that I need to realign. Nora, you were going to share something.
I just found it was interesting. You were connecting quality to self-respect. What is that connection? Perhaps maybe when we're talking about in the context of Rajyoga, that's what we're trying to get back again. But I guess I was reflecting on, we have just these perhaps maybe wrong ideas of self-respect. I know some of the examples that you've given in fitness. The classic example is the one where you have 1 minute to do X number of push-ups. And then I guess I was just thinking about self-respect, and perhaps maybe that's the issue, is that there's self-respect versus image and our ideas of what it looks like, of what self-respect is, which it did remind me about well-known individuals who may not necessarily be looking like they actually have it going on a deep level, but it's the image or using the mirror in the wrong way, and you don't really see what's happening underneath.
In the spiritual study, we learn a huge part of self-respect is to become reacquainted with the virtues, the character of the self. This is, I think, the most touching part of Raj Yoga, is I get to recognize, embrace, celebrate the speciality of the self. And this is actually what creates my personal connection with God, the inheritance, we call it. But this character, this who I am at a qualitative level, the virtues of the self, to be able to celebrate that, and even though they may not be expressed at this time, but it's who I am, I just forgot. And as I continue to connect with that eternal parent, it's strengthened that character. And I find this is self-respect. And so then what happens is that everything I do in the physical realm, every action I do, is now not going to be outcome oriented at all. It's not quantity or outcome. There might be outcome, but that's not actually where I focus. I just focus on, am I still present? I.e. those qualities that are very dear to me, am I expressing them here? So now if I'm cooking a meal, it's not, oh, is it tasty? Is everyone going to like it? The focus isn't there at all. I'm not present at all. But if, let's say, the quality that seems most dear to me is silence, did I prepare that meal in silence? Was I present as I prepared it? That's all I care about. That's successful to me. And then, of course, it will produce whatever results it needs to produce immediately or future, whatever, something beneficial. But that purity, that pure presence of the self in what I'm doing. Did I drive the car peacefully? Did I buy the groceries lovingly? Was I present? That's self-respect. I don't put myself aside in order to perform an action because I just want an outcome. That kills self-respect. There's no purity there. To me, this is the highest form of purity, is self-respect, to not destroy the self for the sake of an outcome or action. So I remember once I was in a fitness class, and it was killing us, right? She had us jumping up, down, all over town. I don't know what was going on. In the heat of this class, we're probably physically exhausted, and in the middle of it, she was a beautiful instructor. She actually went on, she now does really motivational things with people who might be struggling with self-care. But she was teaching this class, and I think she might have been right in front of me, so it was very strong. She said, what is your intention right now? We're jumping up and down all over town. No other fitness instructor acts this kind of thing. Just, what is your intention right? And I remember in a second, grace. Grace, because this quality is very, very dear to me. Grace. I'm not just talking physical grace. I'm just this feeling of graciousness. Can I right now do these burpees with that grace? Am I present in this body as it's jumping up and down? That will be such a fulfilling experience for me to integrate myself into the actions rather than to forget myself for the sake of performing the action with a certain outcome. So quantity isn't bad, but it shouldn't kill quality. It shouldn't kill the self. And so when we sit in soul consciousness with God, we're just nurturing that seed of the qualities. We call it the inheritance, but really think about when you're really sitting with God and that beautiful, you're just feeling so much yourself. You're finally with a being who doesn't care about the show at all. They just want to fuel that seed of who you are, those qualities, this peaceful, beautiful, loving, sweet being. That's called yoga. Everything else is melting away. All the other stuff that built up because I forgot myself and sacrificed myself for outcomes, that's all being melted away. And just pure me is remaining. And then he says, remember me when you come into action, because it looks like you only are really yourself when you're with me. So remember me when you come into action. Remember that you belong to me. This is who you really are, this beautiful, virtuous being. And then come into action. Don't forget yourself. And don't kill yourself for the desire of a certain outcome. That's why it kills self-respect. So, God has a very qualitative eye on us. He's just pulling out the qualities, this incredible capacity that's being left unscratched because we're so outcome focused, desire focused, etc. Even when we make a mistake, even when we react, the healthiest thing I can do at that moment is to sit in God's vision and let him remind me of who I am. And he'll say, it's only because you forgot yourself at that moment. You got caught up in outcomes and pleasing someone else, whatever the case. That's the only mistake you made. You are not bad. You did not cease to be who you are, but you forgot yourself, right? We went through that period of being businessmen and gambling ourselves off, right, until we lost ourselves. So it's very beautiful, this qualitative focus that God has. It's why we love that being so much. Finally, someone who is saying, let go of outcomes. You don't have to do that anymore. It will come naturally. Don't worry about it. It will come. You're free. Focus on quality. Focus on yourself. Get yourself back. Then everything else will follow. What a relief. What a huge relief. Someone who respects us that much. So that quality approach isn't to negate quantity, but again, to put quality in front and let quantity come as it will, when it will. You won't need it. Your value won't depend on it. And it will be benevolent. It will really support and nurture others as well. So I don't know if there's any last thoughts before we go into a reflection. We're okay. I'm getting really intense. Trish out there. I'm not sure what's going on.
I think I can only say, that's a very useful things for us while doing action at that moment, am I really present at a time? Quality, linking to my own self-respect. That is something that I would really like to focus on, right? When I'm in that self-respect and in my true sense, so automatically I'm creating that quality in what I'm doing. So that's something really very nice to know about it, and it's very useful for us to focus on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jima. I think Nora has a last thing to share here. Unless Hema also has to share, but Nora is going to share.
It's more of a question.
Mm,
I was just thinking again about quality and self-respect.
yeah.
I know that you're referring to the emperor and the seed. I know not necessarily everybody has heard of that, and I don't know if it's a good example or a good if it's relevant for that main character to spend all that time to nurture the seed that nothing comes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's apparent to her about her self-respect. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that. Because I mean that in the greater part of, I mean, we talk about Raja Yoga, but in terms of just day-to-day life.
I think that there was, the feeling I got was that this soul had a love for honesty, that so much so that they could not put honesty aside. They could not bargain it off or gamble it off. That so love is such a driving force, and very often I find it's a love of self. That soul was honesty. It's who they were. So they would have to, that was their self-respect. So the idea that self-respect is a quality and honoring that quality. This is who I am. This is what it means to say I am a soul. That when I am present, that quality is present. It's who I am. It's why we say Om Shanti. I am the embodiment of peace. I am peace. So, and as a result, I feel peaceful, but I am actually it. Or we say God is truth. So, and then the sanskars of knowledge, etc. So this idea that that soul is honest, I don't think they needed to think about it. Oh, self-respect. It's just, it's who they were. And there was enough purity that they could not compromise that, right? So it wouldn't even enter their head to think of, oh, let me go buy a plant and stick it in there. Like that wouldn't even enter their head to go into quantity. That quality is who they are. So quality means a certain standard. Quality also means virtue or character, and it's one and the same. So always, the pull of quantity of some fleeting sense of value is there, and it's called lust, but it's at the sake of the self.
I think that just helps me understand, because we really do mix up a lot of things, and sometimes it looks like it's in very royal ways, very subtle ways, and like even skills. I mean, it seems so obvious in a way, but it's not necessarily times that we mix up skill and self-respect, and there's so much that I guess that's in that department, but it's not self-respect.
We really have to honor the practice of quality. When I was, I'll end here, I'm looking at the time, but when I was at the YMCA, there was at that point 3 of us on the design team, and none of us had training in design. None of us had training in graphic design. But I was very aware, it was a beautiful team, I was very aware of the quality of each one. And I knew that the reason they were successful as a designer wasn't because of their skill set, because we had no skills. It was because of that quality, that they performed their task through that quality, and therefore they could get results, but it wasn't through a skill set. And that was a really interesting exercise, because that skill set could be gone tomorrow. I often have the thought, what if I suddenly go blind? Is my life over? Right? There's so much graphic design. It's very interesting. Well, no, because I'm still here at quality. And as long as I keep operating through that quality, which is very honest, very pure way to live, then things will continue to move along as they should. I don't have to worry about, It might even look strange at times, like something horrible is going on, but it's not. As long as there's that pure expression of self, whatever happens is beneficial. And even if there isn't a pure expression of self, thank goodness there's a law of karma, because it's going to steer things back to quality, right? So that's beneficial too, right? It gives me results saying, hey, you're not paying attention to quality. You've got to pay. So that's beneficial too. Whatever is going on is beneficial, always steering us back to quality and saying quantity will come if you focus on quality. It's such a beautiful example through, oh, we're still here, Raj. We're still here. We're going away now. But it's a beautiful example through Brahma Baba, who just focused on quality, quality, quality. And as a result, we're sitting here on this Zoom call because that soul focused on quality. He didn't focus on, oh, I hope in 2020, September, that 5 souls come together and have a Zoom call. No, he just focused on what is the quality of my spiritual effort, and what are the, what honesty was, truthfulness is who he is, right? So that everything he did was honest, accurate, truthful. It's who he is. So by doing that, look at the results, right? You've got this huge organization spanning all the continents. It's incredible because he focused on quality. So I think we have to end there. I have no idea what the topic is next week. I think it's timing. Yeah, so next week it's timing, another very interesting topic. You can start to think about long jump or something, some endeavor that uses timing. So we'll take just a moment of silence. We've totally run out of time, so you'll have to give yourself a little commentary on your own in 1 minute as we finish off with remembering ourselves on that quality level and remembering the one who sees us that way. Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining today and for your contributions, always invaluable. Until we meet again. Om Shanti. With quality, there is one word quite often used in continuous improvement. Beautiful. Continuous improvement. Nice.